Cochran spends a tremendous amount of time with our players on a personal level, and they value the relationship that he creates with them. He spends time with them, meaningful time with them, and I think a lot of our players saw the human side with Scott, and that we all know addiction is real, and it probably affected me as the leader of the organization for the first time to have someone on your staff be involved with that. And I got a lot of help from outside sources on how to do it, and I'm so proud of what he's done and how he's fought back to bring himself back and be the husband and father that he's always been. And he's a tremendous husband and father, and that's first. And he's a mentor to the players on our team. And you know, he's got tons of players that played at Alabama that still reach out to him and talk to him. They come and work out at our place and come see him because they value that relationship that he had with them. And he's a special person that's meant a lot to a lot of people. So we've stood there by him and supported him, and we'll continue to do that.
Coach, we'll go over here on the left side again on the far aisle.
Yes, Coach, David Friedlander with the Gwinnett Daily Post. Circle back to Stetson. You mentioned about how you think he's one of the least respected good players. Looking, though, more as a leader, though, can you speak to what differences, if any, that you see in him as a leader now as opposed to when he first stepped into the starting job?
Yeah, I think now he has a little more, what's the right word, support, because he is the guy. You know, it's hard for players around you to have conviction you're the guy if you're not the starter. And he wasn't the starter at this time last year, at this time 2 years ago. He started intermittently throughout 2 years ago, and then once he won the job, I think he's created a little bit of momentum with our players, our skill players, because there's not a doubt there. You know, they understand. He knows the system. He can get them the ball. He can throw the ball vertically down the field. He can throw deep comebacks. He can scramble around and make a play with his feet. And I think they value that. That's given him a little more credibility, which credibility to me is earned, right? He earned that by the way he played at the end of the year and most of the season, and he continues to do that the way he leads out there in 7-on-7s and practices and things.
All right, we have time for 3 more. We'll start here in the front row, right in front of me, Coach, first row.
Hi, Anna Ruth Reagans with Dog Post. So earlier, Nolan Smith described the defense as the oldest brothers of the group. So what do you expect from this defense this season and moving forward?
My expectation for our defense is to be fast and physical. Look, we don't shy away from the fact that we've had success on defense, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone to recruit a kid and they said, well, they told us y'all weren't going to be any good on defense this year. You're losing everybody. They said that 2 years ago. They said that last year. They're saying that this year. Look, if you go recruit really good football players and they're fast and physical, you'll play good defense. I mean, you'll play good defense. And good defense sometimes is a loose term in college football right now, because giving up 20 sometimes is a good defense. And we don't like to change our standards, and we know we're going to have a good defense year in and year out. It's just going to be different. We're going to have different strengths and different weaknesses, but Nolan will certainly be a big part of that.
Okay, we'll go over here to the right, third row.
Kirby Wilson Alexander from The Advocate. When it comes to NIL, how does your program approach it, and is there anything that you think needs to change about how it's structured in college football?
Yeah, the pivotal question, right? Everybody waits for that one for all the conversation. But, you know, the NIL program we have in place, we have a Classic City Collective run by Matt Hibbs, who does a tremendous job. It's built on being sustainable, because I don't think what's going on in college football right now at some places is sustainable, meaning can you do that year in and year out and repeat that? Can you honor the commitment that some people are trying to make to kids to get them to go to their school? It's just, it's not good for college football what's out there. What is good is NIL is good on the basis of what NIL is based on, okay? For Dan Jackson to be a walk-on from Gainesville, Georgia, and come in and get an opportunity to earn money for his education, that is good. For a young man that has a father that's on dialysis down in South Georgia and he can't support his father unless he goes back home and works or he gets NIL, that is good. We have 95 players right now with NIL deals that are on our roster. That's incredible, the depth of that. There's so much good there. It's the guardrails, it's the parameters that we need to protect our game. And not only protect our game, guys, it's protect young men. okay? Because for, a young man to, we may have had the highest paid defensive lineman last year in NIL in Jordan Davis. We had the highest paid tight end in Brock Bowers in terms of NIL. Keely Ringo, I would argue, is probably one of the highest paid corners there is in NIL. So NIL can be a good thing, and they can learn to manage money at a young age. But to use it as inducement to get a young man to go to your school is not good for anybody or the game. I don't have the answer for how to guardrail that, but NIL has been good to Georgia, and it's been good to our players, and it'll continue to be.
Coach, we'll take one final question right in front of me, 3 rows back.
Morning, Coach. Kobe Sereno with Bulldog Illustrated. With your tight end room being all the rave right now, I just wanted to ask how you think the new blocking rule will affect tight end play at Georgia.
It shouldn't affect us. The new blocking rule, which was a part of the committee that put that in place, we're not a big team that cuts and blocks that way. So it's a safety issue, and we like to block man-to-man, face up. We're not a big cut team, and we don't rely on the cut block, and so it shouldn't change a lot for us.
Coach, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate what you do.
And good morning and welcome to Hump Day at SEC Media Days. I am Thom Abraham. So glad that you are with us today. It is Georgia Day here in Atlanta, and as you just heard from Kirby Smart live in the main room, just below us, the fans are here. But again, not in the numbers that you would think, because, parking is sparse and it's expensive, and it's just not like a mall in Hoover. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Arkansas is also here this morning, and I've got to say, I really love Sam Pittman. I really do. He's just a pure football guy. This guy had 16 different jobs in coaching before he got the Arkansas job at age 58. I mean, there's nothing out there that would have suggested that he would have had this kind of success, but he's been on some big-time staffs throughout the years. Remember, you can watch the show on Facebook at 97.7 ESPN, Twitch, and YouTube at WZZN TV as well. Like and subscribe and follow and get notifications there at those spots as well. Just go to 97.7ESPN.com and get links to all of that and get the app. All right, you need the app so you can get our alternate streaming channels as well. Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4, the Blitz. It's all right there on the app. Now, the show is busy today. We are locked and loaded, and we're going to get things going right off of the top with our friend Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South, who joins me here on set at the College Football Hall of Fame. Connor, welcome in. How are you?
Good to be here, man. I feel like talking season is in full swing. I think I've probably gone on record with about like 50 different predictions and things that could come back to bite me. So let's make it 51.
Yeah, well, you just, as long as you kind of keep look, this is like doing the basketball brackets. You know what I mean? You get one shot to me. You got to be, and I carry this with me all season long. I pick every single game in the SEC.
Same.
And I stick to it. I try to stick to it as best as possible. And we'll get to some of those games in a minute. But your take on this being here at the College Football Hall of Fame, it's a different setup than we had 4 years ago when we were over in the hotel. Certainly different than being, at the Galleria in Hoover. But what do you feel? How do you feel about this whole layout from a working standpoint?
I like it. I love the College Football Hall of Fame. I've been here a decent amount. We did a live show here before the 2019 SEC Championship. I've been to Hoover a few times, but I'm not one of these media members that's been doing this for like 20 years.
Right.
So I have a different perspective on it than the SEC purist. But I love it. I love it. Was like, basically asked Nick Saban if he had the power to stop the rain.
If he stopped the rain.
That was the most appropriate thing ever. It's like so unbelievably loud to hear that too, and to hear it going. But yeah, I love talking season. I love that we get to see all of these coaches out here, and the fact that we get to talk about actual football instead of an off season in which it felt like, man, football was just on the back burner. My guy Peter Burns brought up a really good point of it felt like going into media days, this is the least we've talked about actual football, and this is the SEC, last I checked,
right.
And there are plenty of actual football storylines to talk about.
Yeah, there are. The thing is that college football was dominated in the last month now by the news, of course, about USC and UCLA, and then that leads to what will the SEC do to respond. I thought that the comment that was made, I always find it interesting to look at the national websites and see what they cherry pick from the comments that are made at that podium. I always think that's very interesting. I saw what they said about what Lane Kiffin said and what they said about what Greg Sankey said, that they were fine with 16. He did say that, but he also did make that little comment about being nimble.
Yes.
That was something. That word means a lot. When he said, we'll observe and we'll be nimble. Nimble means something.
If we found out this afternoon that the ACC is able to get out of the grant of rights contract, which locks them in through 2036, you bet your sweet behind that Greg Sankey would be nimble in a hurry. There's no doubt about it. He would be all over the phone lines, talking to Florida State, talking to Miami, talking to Clemson, talking to UNC, talking to Wake Forest. No, I'm kidding, not Wake Forest. Probably like Virginia Tech.
Duke,
but
UNC.
Duke, I don't know. I don't know about
Think
Duke.
about the basketball conference.
I know.
Kentucky, Duke, UNC.
Football moves the needle with all of these.
That's true.
moves. Always moves the needle. But I do think there is some appeal in UNC as well from a football standpoint, and just being able to be in that state. And I think that's something that they take pride in. But I think that realignment at the Power 5 level right now is going to take a little bit of a break. I don't think we're going to get to 20 before the start of the season or something like that, or where 20 is expected, unless, of course, we get a development with the grant of rights deal. But that's why Greg Sankey can come out and say, yeah, we're staying at 16. It doesn't necessarily make sense for Washington and Oregon to all of a sudden come to the SEC. He doesn't need to react. Greg Sankey talked about no panic, right? No panic. That's the biggest thing that I
Right.
thought he drove home from that message.
The other part about it, there is the nuclear option. I mean, the one thing that was surprising to me was the fact that in that grant of media rights deal that the ACC has, there is a codicil that says that if there's 8 teams that lead the league, it goes away. That's when the grant of rights deal goes away. And you think about it, and if you do think, well, if they went all out raid and it's Miami and Florida State and Clemson and UNC and Duke and Louisville because of the Kentucky connection, maybe Virginia Tech, UT and Virginia Tech would be a fun hillbilly rivalry. Yeah, you start thinking about that, and could it be a 24-team SEC, which looks like, 2 12-team conferences. One of the coaches said, I don't know what a conference is anymore. I think it was Leach. What's a conference and what's divisions and anything else?
There's a balance. You don't need to add just to add. You don't want to saturate your conference. You don't want to necessarily go strictly for numbers. And I think there is a calculated move that awaits the SEC probably, because I do think the SEC will eventually get to 20. I think that will happen, but in the meantime, I think they're going to be at 16. I don't necessarily think that they're waiting on these, the Washingtons and the Oregons to call them up and say, we want to join the SEC. I think they make a little bit more sense for the Big Ten. Not that geography is a thing anymore. Geography is dead. Rest in peace, that and the Alliance. Not exactly in great shape, but yeah, I think that we're not going to see anything in the very near future with the SEC.
But the SEC does have some geography. With the moves they've made so far, the SEC does have geography in its favor, in as much as that. And I thought Sankey, again, a great comment when he talked about why Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC trumps USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. It's contiguous states, restoring rivalries. And if you do go in and pick up another team out of Florida or two, or you do go to South Carolina, the SEC has a number of options that are still within the footprint, if that's right. I hope it never becomes a national conference. It's the Southeastern Conference. But at least it does have those options within its footprint.
Isn't it crazy, though, how regional this sport is? I mean, it is truly regional in a way. We want our rivalries to be regional. There
Right.
are no true national rivalries in college football in terms of like, hey,
Notre Dame, USC. Maybe
Notre
that's
Dame-
it.
Name a Notre Dame USC game outside of the Bush Push that was relevant in the 21st century.
Oh, in the 21st century?
You
Yeah.
can't.
I was going to go back to Anthony Davis, with the kickoff return and all of that. But, yeah, you're right. That was
Exactly. That'd be
70s,
my
80s.
point.
Yeah.
Nobody really thinks of it in that sort of way, which is crazy because in pro sports, obviously, there are national rivalries galore, and college football is becoming a pro sport. I mean, that's the conclusion that I think everybody has kind of come to. You've heard coaches address that this week. It is becoming more and more national, and I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing. If we get USC becoming a rivalry forming this rivalry with Ohio State, I think that's good. Not all rivalries need to be regional in order to be good.
Right. Connor O'Gara with us Saturday Down South does a tremendous job there. You asked the best question of Sam Pittman because you asked about the hog deal and the sculpture. I then went and looked it up right after you asked the question.
It's
It is
incredible.
spectacular.
It's unbelievable. He is a slobbering hog
Slobbering
on
hog.
his property, which was I didn't realize that was replacing a marlin statue,
Yeah.
which was damaged and
on a lake. Why a marlin on a lake? You know what I mean? It wasn't.
Yeah, no.
It's not like he's on the ocean. I mean, there's not too many marlins in the lakes in the South.
Weird move, but to replace it with a hog statue, and it was some sort of insurance deal, and he just rolled with it, and that's who Sam Pittman is. He is the boss hog. The fact that he has a hog statue
Boss hog.
on his property is just—it's the most fitting thing you could ever think of. The fact that we got like a 2-minute explanation, that was well beyond my expectations.
Yeah.
That was everything I could have hoped for and more.
I like him. Every time I hear him, I like him more and more. You know what I mean? And
He's America's coach.
He really is, and he's just, he's my age. So for me, when I listen to that guy, I go back to my coaching days and listening to offensive line coaches speak and things like that. That is a quintessential coach's coach. A lot of the coaches we've got now, including Nick Saban, are very kind of corporate. They're heads of major corporation type guys. That dude, Sam Pittman, that's a football coach right there. He's the head coach of Arkansas. That's a football coach. And I love listening to him. and I'm pulling for him.
If you don't like Sam Pittman, I don't like you. That's what I've come to. And you know what? I say that as somebody who was totally skeptical of him as a hire. I said to myself, man, who in the world is going to want this Arkansas job when he was taking it at the end of the 2019 season? We thought Chad Morris left that program in shambles.
Yeah.
And then all Sam Pittman does is come in and completely change the culture. He is the most likable coach in America. There is no doubt in my mind. Even the guys who are, in my opinion, are likable. I like Shane Beamer. I like Eli Drinkwitz. They're not for everybody. They're not. They would probably tell that to you. And Sam Pittman has a way. Sam Pittman to college football is almost like Luke Combs.
Yeah.
Luke Combs is the most relatable person in country music, right? He has all of these hits wherein he doesn't feel like a Luke Bryan or somebody, or, Thomas Rhett trying to get into the pop lane or something like that. Luke Combs knows who he is. He is authentically himself. He's not trying to be somebody else. That's Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
Sam Pittman is the most down-to-earth coach that there is. He'll give you a straight answer every single time. You never feel like he's trying to sell you on something. He just is Sam, and that to me is why so many people love him and why so many people are rooting for him.
And I went back as I was trying to predict what they will do this year. I went back and again I looked at the 2021, and I was like, yeah, they did hammer Texas. I remember that. Oh, wait a minute, they beat Texas A&M. Wait, they won that game, against LSU as well, and you start. It just doesn't kind of register because they went several years, 2-3 years without winning a game in the SEC, and you see that they did some serious damage and really should have won that Ole Miss game, that 52-51 deal that we saw there. When I look at them this year, Arkansas this year, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the split with the Cincinnati and BYU. Those are I think they beat Cincinnati. I think going to Utah and beating BYU could be tough. I gave them the benefit of the split, though, there with those two games. I think they lose to Texas A&M this time at Jerry's World. I think they lose to Alabama. And I'm going to say I'm going to call it an upset, that Auburn's going to beat them at Auburn. I have them 8-4. I have them 8-4. No, I got to have an upset in here somewhere. The chalk is that they beat Auburn. And they should, but it's at Auburn. I'm going to say somewhere along the line they're going to get dumped there in a game. But still, I have them at 8-4, coming off a 9-win season last year with the bowl game. What are you thinking about Arkansas?
I have them finishing second in the West.
Wow.
Second in the West.
Ahead of Texas A&M.
Ahead of A&M.
Yeah.
I think getting over that hump last year was huge. Beating them for the first time in a decade. I think A&M's the most overrated team in college football coming into this year. The fact that we had the development this morning, Anaya Smith, somebody who was supposed to be at SEC Media Days tomorrow, arrested on DWI charges. Houston Chronicle reported that. And I think that A&M is a team that does not have this margin for error that everybody perceives. They lost so much talent in the front seven. They have a new defensive coordinator in DJ Durkin replacing Mike Elko, who is one of the best defensive minds in college football. And we don't know that they're going to be better on offense. We don't know that Haynes King is going to all of a sudden rectify these issues that they had last year with Zach Calzada, who was good for one game and was the 13th quarterback in the SEC otherwise. And to me, I look at A&M and I think, man, they still have so many questions. And I look at Arkansas and I say, okay, I love KJ Jefferson. I think he's the number 3 quarterback in the SEC coming into this year. I love their running game. It's going to be probably the best in the SEC, or maybe number 2 in the SEC, just as it was last year when they were the best in Power 5. And I think that defense should be better. I love the fact that Jalen Catalon, Bumper Pool, these guys return. They add Drew Sanders, a huge area of need for that team to be able to rush the passer. He's going to be able to kind of check that box for them. And they believe in Sam Pittman. And they're one of 8 Power 5 teams that is returning their both coordinators for the 3rd consecutive year. Continuity matters. Arkansas finally has continuity, and I think they're in position to be like that, potentially like 9-3 team this year.
So you're thinking 6-2 in the league is good for second in the West, somewhere around there?
5-3 could be.
5-3 could be.
5-3 could be with how crazy the West is. We're going to see a lot of 5-3, 4-4, 3-5.
Yeah, I agree with you there, because I also have Florida at 8-4. I have Kentucky at 8-4.
Ooh.
You know, those are I have Florida at 8-4.
Why are you sold on Florida?
I don't think that's really that sold on them. I think that the key to 8-4 to me is beating Utah. And it's at home. You know, Utah going into Gainesville. I think if they beat Utah in that opener, I think if they lose, if they were to drop that game, I think they're a 7-5 type team. But when I look at the rest of the schedule, I look at the rest of the non-conference schedule, I actually have Florida State upsetting them in Tallahassee, if that would be an upset, for them to drop to 8-4. I have them losing to A&M. I have them losing to Georgia. I have them losing the game at Tennessee. So I don't know how high I am on them versus how weak their non-conference schedule is. They lose to Utah, they're 7-5.
The single most baffling spread that I've seen so far.
They do have a pretty good quarterback. Whether he wants to call himself AR-15 or not, they got a pretty good quarterback.
Anthony Richardson has 2 games in which he's attempted double-digit pass attempts. We need
Pretty
to pump
good.
the brakes.
Yeah,
We need to pump the
pretty
brakes on
good.
Anthony Richardson. He still makes high school level mistakes throwing the football. I'm still worried about that for him. And I don't think their defense is going to be very good at all. I think their defense has a very tall task ahead. I think that last year it was telling to watch Ventrell Miller get injured, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we don't have a middle linebacker. Pretty important position last I checked. I think their defense is going to struggle. I have Utah going to the college football playoff, so I don't think Utah's losing that game week 1. That spread is like Florida -1.
Yeah.
Like Florida's somehow favored in that game just because Utah is coming across the country. People are going to see Cameron Rising in that game, and they're going to say, this dude is for real. This dude is a Heisman candidate. They're going to realize that Utah returns basically everybody outside of Devin Lloyd, who was their stud linebacker. That is a great football team that Kyle Whittingham is returning, and I'm a believer in them. So I guess that's not really to do with Florida, but I just think Florida year 1, it's going to be tough with Billy Napier.
Just back to A&M for a moment. That A&M Miami game is kind of fascinating. You look at, I don't know what Mario Cristobal is going to do down there. He's got Kevin Steele as his defensive coordinator. It seems like they're building something there. I think there is talent. There always seems to be talent there. I don't know why none of these guys have been able to get it to work. But that A&M Miami game is going to go a long ways towards determining what kind of team A&M is, because you could very easily see them 8-4 again. And I'm wondering what that means for Jimbo Fisher. I mean, what would another 8-4 mean for Jimbo?
It would mean he still has $86 million left on his contract and he's not getting fired. That's what that would mean. I'll tell you what, I wrote out the numbers for Jimbo Fisher's contract just because I wanted to.
But that's a real number? He'd have $86 million left on that deal?
Yes. He
Wow.
just signed
I thought
a new
you were
contract.
just using a superlative number. That's the real number,
That's
86.
the real number. Jimbo Fisher's not going anywhere.
No, he's not.
He's not. And if he has a bad season in 2023, when they have that championship window, 2023, 2024, that's the championship window for A&M. That's the chance when Jimbo Fisher is going to be able to make good on that fake plaque that he was presented with saying future national champion, which was an absolute joke. But the fact that they have this contract hanging over Jimbo Fisher, he's not on any hot seat. There's no doubt about it. The better question, it's a different question, is will Jimbo Fisher still be considered one of the top 5 to 10 coaches in college football? If you actually go back and compare him to Mark Stoops since 2017, buddy, it'll
Go back and
surprise
compare
you.
him to Kevin Sumlin. His numbers are Sumlin was as good as he was in his first 4 years there.
Yeah, there are, and those are the issues. And if you don't make good on that talent, signing this historically good recruiting class in 2022, then obviously that's going to be an issue going forward.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And of course, tomorrow he's going to have a lot more to talk about with the Aeneas Smith thing. So, we'll see how all of that works out. Connor O'Gara has been our guest. Connor, I appreciate you so much. Great stuff as always. Thank you for your help on the show throughout the season, and we'll look forward to talking again.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Connor O'Gara. Outstanding. I tell you what, I think he's in the top 5% nationally now of guys. When you talk college football, you talk to Connor O'Gara, and he does a great job. You hear him on Paul a lot. Paul will be with us tomorrow, but you hear him on Feinbaum a lot as well. He just does a great job. All right, long first segment of the show. We are here, of course, at SEC Media Days, Day 3. Lots to get to throughout the show. When we come back, we'll get you set up for the rest of it next right here. It's the Thom Abraham Show, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. for us to be here at SEC Media Days. And, of course, this is another big day here because Georgia is here and Florida is here. I don't know how many times we've had Georgia and Florida, those two rivals, on the same day. I mean, can you imagine Alabama and Auburn being on the same day? Auburn will be tomorrow. Tennessee is tomorrow as well. But can you imagine what it would be like for Georgia or for Alabama and Auburn to be on the same day? That's kind of like what it is for Florida and Georgia to be here on the same day as well. Now, Gary Stokan is coming up in a few minutes. Gary Stokan is the executive director of and the president of the Peach Bowl, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which is sold out, by the way. And it will be on December 31st, New Year's Eve this year. And I will just say this about that. I love the Peach Bowl. I don't want this to come off wrong at all. I love the Peach Bowl. For the Peach Bowl, though, to be a big – you know what the game is that's before the Peach Bowl that kind of starts the day on New Year's Eve? On ABC, it'll be the Music City Bowl, and on ESPN, it'll be the Sugar Bowl. Sugar Bowl. 11 o'clock in the morning, Sugar Bowl. That's kind of weird as we anticipate the Peach Bowl. I mean, that is just – I think it's really interesting. All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to get a quick break in here, and then when we come back, Gary Stokan will join us next right here on the Tom Abraham Show, 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. to make sure that you have everything you need equipment-wise to get the job done like a pro. And if you're a pro, you're going to want to check them out, especially their north location for the contractors where they have the much bigger stuff as well. And then there's this stuff. Let me tell you something. The guys that are handling Gary Stokan keep telling me 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. I'm going to keep him extra time so you could tell the next place 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, okay? That's what I go back a long way with Gary Stokan. So this will be interesting when the Chick-fil-A CEO and not the Peach Bowl CEO and president will be joining us, not the Chick-fil-A, CEO. And I don't know. I wonder how much Chick-fil-A he eats. That's for sure. Grizz. By the way, also coming up at the top of the hour, Buck Bellew will join us. Georgia legend quarterback Buck Bellew will join us. He's got a book out, Inside the Hedges. We'll talk about that, and we'll get his take on the Georgia Bulldogs as well. And as I do for each day of SEC Media Days, I predict the final record for every team in the SEC. I don't know who's going to beat Georgia. I think we have 2 undefeated. I already said that Alabama's going to go 12-0. Alabama's a much more difficult schedule than Georgia does. If Georgia beats Oregon in week 1, which they should, I don't know. I don't even know who gives them a game. Florida is always Florida, but they'll be double-digit favorites there. Tennessee is not going to give much of a fight in between the hedges. Where's the game? I think they're double-digit favorites in every game. We got to have Grizz look up what is the line right now for the Georgia-Oregon game. Isn't Georgia like a 17-point favorite or something like that over Oregon? Check that out, Grizz. Have the bandy man look it up if you can look it up and see what is the line in that game, because it's going to be. I think they're double-digit favorites in 17.5. Right, Grizz? 17.5. By the way, Grizz, you would have been very excited last night. We had a little reception dinner presented by Mercedes-Benz over at the stadium, and yeah, it was nice. And I'm not sure. I think Captain Cool maybe posted some pictures from inside the stadium and from inside the. Did you see that? And we came in through the Atlanta United entrance. That's where we came in, and you could see all of the Atlanta United stuff, and they have their own locker room in the stadium. Yeah. Well, did that give you the sense of being here by eating Chick-fil-A? Are you bitter? Is that what it is? Are you a little bitter that you're not here this year? I mean, I know you've been in the past. Are you a little bit? It sounds like you're a little bit bitter. I'm not sure. I mean, somebody had to run the show. You know what I mean? I mean, somebody had to be the man back in the studio. So, but I'm glad that we have you there. Yeah, well, and it's Atlanta, which I should have been thinking about that and maybe getting that done. I'm not sure. But Gary Stokan now sitting down for his annual visit with me, and I always have all of these ideas, and his people. I've got to say it again.
You got a great location here.
We do. Actually, we do.
How do you like the Hall of Fame?
I love the Hall of Fame.
Good.
And
good to have you here.
It's a home game for you.
Yeah.
For you to be
Thank
able to
God,
be here.
I just got back from London late last night after going to Wimbledon in the Open.
What's up with that?
Glad I didn't have to drive over to Hoover this morning.
What are you doing at Wimbledon in the Open? I mean, that's a heck of a summer right there.
Man, what great weather we had too.
Wimbledon is not a thing for. Although I grew up liking tennis a lot, but because the Americans aren't any good anymore, because we don't have a guy, and now we don't even have girls hardly anymore that are good. We don't. I just can't do it. But St. Andrews is on the bucket list.
Yeah,
I got to say,
Andrews.
as a lifelong golfer, I played college golf. St. Andrews is on the bucket list. I got to get there.
Well, I tell you, I played in 2019 before COVID. And as I'm coming up 18.
You played St. Andrews?
Played St. Andrews.
Oh, my gosh.
I had my little 5-year-old. He was 2-year-old at the time. 2-year-old grandson. And my wife and daughter, they got him in the stroller. And I'm playing with my son-in-law. And I asked the member on 18, I said, can he walk up 18 with us? So we hit our drives. We take our pictures on Swilcan Bridge. which is a great memory.
So they let you do that. They
And
let
then-
you stop on the Swillican Bridge.
yeah,
I
and
thought
you
maybe
take
they don't even let people
Oh,
walk.
no, you
Yeah.
take your pictures, and then you walk up 18, and I missed my par putt, so I got about 2 feet left. And my little 2-year-old grandson, who loves golf, he's a little lefty, he had a little plastic blue putter with him. I said, come on over here, Stoken. They named him after me. Which
That's
is
his
great.
first name is Stoken?
Stoken.
Oh,
He's
that's
got
cool.
the same birthday as me, and they named him.
Oh,
my last
how
name
cool
is
is
his first
that?
name. And he thinks I hung on. So
Yeah, that's great.
I careered as a grandfather there, but I got 3 other grandsons, and I love them all. But anyway, Stoken, I said, come here, knock this putt in. So he takes the little blue putter on 18 at St. Andrews, 2 years old, and knocks the putt in.
Of course, you got
great
pictures of it. Right?
I told him, take off your hat, look the guy in the eye, shake his hand, say good game, and everything else. And so we took him back over this year, and 5 years old, he's at the 150th Open.
Wow. Hopefully he'll remember that.
4 or 5 years old.
Of course, when you play it, they don't have the grandstands up
No,
and all of
no,
that
no.
stuff. So it would be so cool to play with it. The way it looks at 17, 18, 1, with the grandstands is just absolutely spectacular. We're going to talk about British Open now.
We sat on 17 in the stands.
So you can see him coming up.
Smith and Young hit up.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting when Cam Smith hits the shot, almost rolls in the bunker on 17. Everybody, there's about 5,000 people in the bleachers. Oh, and the ball stops right before it goes in the bunker. He comes up, hits that putt, and then knocks the putt in. It was incredible to see. And then McIlroy missed the putt. And then Cam Young, who he leaves his birdie putt 2 inches short, and then goes up in eagles 18.
Yeah. Now
phenomenal.
you weren't there when Tiger was coming down 18 on Friday and Rory
we
was
were
taking
walking
off a
up.
1.
We were walking up. I
What a
didn't see
moment.
Rory do what he did.
What
but
a
we were
moment.
walking up when Tiger was coming up 18.
Yeah, what an incredible moment that was. What does 18 play for the members? When you played it, do you play from the
It's
tips
a
or
par
do you play?
4. It's
Right. But I mean, it's as short as because for those guys, it's 340 yards. It's easily it's very drivable.
We can't drive it, but
So they don't play it at 280 or 290 or something. They play
Yeah. It's what's cool about 1 and 18 are 2 of my favorite holes is they're so wide open.
Right.
That as a player you can't go wrong.
Right.
You can't hit it out of bounds because you're going to hit it in the middle of the fairway. Now the greens, over here we'll take out a wedge,
Right.
or an 8-iron and pitch it. No, the caddies. No, you leave that in your bag. You take your putter out and you putt.
Yeah.
You putt
Really?
everything
Really?
near the greens. Everything.
Have you ever read Golf in the Kingdom?
No.
You haven't read Golf in the Kingdom? Mm-hmm. Oh, you got to read or listen to it or read it. Golf in the Kingdom is outstanding. Shivas Irons is the caddy. It's a mythical, but it's kind of based on a story. But it's about playing at St. Andrews and the old the term the caddy keeps using is "have at it" because there's no winner rules. In
Right.
British Open
Right,
golf or
right.
in golf in Scotland and Shivas Irons and it's just a wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a very much a mystical book about golf in Scotland.
Okay.
It's called Golf in the Kingdom.
Golf
it's
in the Kingdom. I'll have to
Wonderful
get that.
book. Wonderful book. Gary Stoken with us here, talking British Open. Did you, when you took your picture on the Swillican Bridge, did you have the leather helmet on? Because that would have been. It's old school, so you should take your hat off and wear your leather helmet over there.
That'd have been a classic. That's for sure.
You need to bring that thing over. I want to take a picture with the leather helmet. Why don't you ever bring one of those? You got to have backup ones, don't you?
We have. I thought we had it in the trophy case over here. But
Oh
maybe
yeah,
not.
you know what?
Maybe not.
I think you did see, but that would be a
Come to the Georgia Oregon game this year.
I would if it was
2 top
Georgia
10
Clemson.
teams. Georgia Clemson's in 2024.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I was saying they got the
24.
wrong teams playing each other. We were just talking about Georgia's a 17-point favorite in that game.
Are they really?
We'll see how the game goes. 17.5-point favorite in that game. So
Wow.
Georgia will be a double-digit favorite in every single game they play this year. Every single game. Their schedule is. They'll be a double-digit favorite in every single football game they play. If they're not 12-0, it's a huge upset.
Wow.
But then, of course, when they get back here for the SEC championship game, it would be a little bit of a different animal. I know you're not selling tickets for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl because you sold that thing out in about 20 minutes. How about that?
Well, we got that sold out. We just announced sellout today of Georgia Oregon.
Really?
And we hope to
Georgia,
sell out
yeah.
Georgia Tech Clemson by the end of this week. So we'll have 3 games 5 of the 6 teams are all ranked in the top 10, according to Phil Steele, and 3 of them will be sellouts.
Wow.
This is our record season.
You need to have the Peach Bowl, the Atlanta Falcons, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, so that they can sell out that stadium too, like you guys do. Certainly for college football, they just do a tremendous job. And it is something this year, just a general commentary. You know, you think about the Beach Bowl being a national semifinal game this year, and it's in that, 4:30 Eastern time?
Will either be either that game or the late game, but typically they put the Fiesta Bowl late
Fiesta will be the late
because they're
game.
our partner and they're out in the West Coast. So,
and what all of that has done is push the Sugar Bowl to an 11 a.m. start Central Time. Noon
which is new because the Sugar Bowl would have typically played January 1st, but because that's on a Sunday with NFL, they've had to move.
Yeah.
So they'll lead into us at 11 o'clock,
Yeah, that is just, for those of us that have been around college football for a minute, just thinking about the Sugar Bowl kicking off at 11 o'clock and the Peach Bowl. And I think I've told you the story in the past. I was here in 93 for the American Football Coaches Association conference. And a bunch of us went over to the Peach Bowl. It was the first one at the Georgia Dome. It was the first. I think it was the first.
it was Mississippi State, North Carolina.
It was a great game. Natron Means. I think it was 28-21 was the final. We sat club level, and it was the very first one over there at the Dome
was a great place to watch a game.
It was. It really was. And so was this facility.
Yeah,
I mean,
this facility.
We were over there last night with the Mercedes-Benz deal.
Yeah,
I don't know if you got back for that or not,
No.
but it was. It was spectacular, and just to see how massive it is and how big the atrium areas are and how much there is now between the field and I heard rumors. They said that you could fit the old Georgia Dome inside that stadium.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, which is really something. So how far out are you now with kickoff games? So you said 2024.
So next year we have Georgia Tech Louisville, which Louisville's having a top 10 recruiting class this year. 24 we have Georgia Clemson.
Okay.
And 25, we have 2 games, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse, Tennessee.
Syracuse, Tennessee. The
Lot of
Q's, my old stomping grounds. Greg Sankey will be happy about that. He's from up there.
Yeah, that's right.
He got his master's
New
at
York.
Syracuse.
Yeah.
So he's a Syracuse guy. That's going to be an interesting one. How do you determine when you're going to have 2 and when you're just going to have 1?
Well, we work with the ACC. They have the exclusive TV slot on Monday night with ESPN. So we told them, look, when you need our help, we'd be glad to do a second game.
Right.
It makes sense when you have a Georgia Tech or a Clemson, a local team.
Right.
Because people have to work the next day. So they got to be able to get back to go to work on Tuesday. So it works out where this year, Clemson, Georgia Tech, first time ever, the ACC is going to open in a neutral site game. In the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. So we'll have an ACC conference opener with Georgia Tech Clemson on Monday night.
What happens when those are all SEC teams in a couple of years? I mean, it'll be an all SEC. You'll have Clemson, Georgia playing. It's an SEC rivalry.
So you got expansion going beyond the 16, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way it stops now. I mean, I think that train has left the station. It's
going
all
to be interesting.
It's going to come down to that media rights thing, because
the
right
grant
now,
of rights
the grant of rights.
36.
Yeah, exactly. Did you know that grant of rights goes away if 8 teams were to leave the ACC? There's a codicil in there in the contract.
I didn't know that.
If there's 8 teams that leave the ACC, then the grant of rights goes away. And just think about that for a second. If the nuclear option is, Clemson, Florida, or Florida State, Miami, UNC, Duke, Louisville because of the Kentucky connection as well, maybe Virginia Tech. You can get to 8 in a hurry. And then the next thing you know, the Big Ten's grabbing the rest of them. Next thing you know, you got 2 24-team conferences. Who knows what the future of college football is going to be?
Who knows what tomorrow is in
college
football.
What we do know is that the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic and the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl are sold out. I mean, what a tremendous job your folks have done with that. And it's so cool down here. My youngest son, John, now working for the radio station. And so he's been to SEC Media Days in Hoover. With his mom, they'd come down and hang out a little bit and stuff. He's never worked it like this. And he's just falling in love with downtown Atlanta. He's like, this is so cool.
A great place.
And it's a great venue for this type of stuff with the hotels and the locations and the Georgia World Congress right there. I mean, there's just so many perfect things.
Our city just works for big-time events.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah,
Our
it's
people really enjoy Southern hospitality. So that's where it starts. But the infrastructure is here with the airport where you can, fly in on hourly flights from Chicago, New York, L.A., etc. But you can drive through 3 interstates with I-20, I-75, and I-85 here rather easily. You got 12,000 hotel rooms downtown.
Yeah.
You got within walking distance of the facilities, great
Right.
restaurants, and it just works.
Speaking of great restaurants, do you have to pay for Chick-fil-A? Do you there's a Chick-fil-A right downstairs here in the building, and they have the media luncheon always during my show. So I'm like, I have to run down to Chick-fil-A afterwards. And I'm just saying, I wonder if Gary Stokan has to actually pay for a Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich.
I do.
You do? All right, well,
But I will tell you, when I did this deal on the Hall of Fame, when I met with Truett Cathy about them sponsoring the Hall of Fame,
yeah.
I told him we would put a Chick-fil-A right next to the Hall of Fame, and he was all in for that.
I always give you an idea at the end of so 2 ideas for walk around with the helmet. So every single radio station in the
He wants the helmet.
I
he
want
wants to try the helmet on.
every radio station in the South. You got 30 radio stations here. They'd all want to take a picture with the helmet, put it on their social media. Think about the free love you would
We got
get.
it right downstairs in the registration room.
Think of the free love that you would get from that, and then talk to your Chick-fil-A partner and tell them, hey, send Shula's in Birmingham used to feed us. Tell them, hey, run a Chick-fil-A card up and down here during the lunchtime shows, and everybody in the South would be talking about Chick-fil-A for 15 minutes.
We used to provide that at lunchtime here, but
Yeah.
the SEC had a competing sponsor at some point that wouldn't allow us.
Well, there you go.
You know how that runs.
Gary Stokan has been our guest. Gary, it's always great to visit with you. Thank you for the golf talk. I mean,
Great
we
to
had
be with you.
5 minutes of something other than football talk here at Media Days, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So I appreciate you.
Great to see you again.
Good to see
I know
you.
it's college football when we get together here.
That's right.
John, welcome to Atlanta.
There you go. Good job by you, Gary Stokan. Thanks, Gary. What a great guy. I mean, and it's always that way with Gary Stokan. He does such a tremendous job, and we really appreciate him a lot. And we're about to get a schedule. Oh, we're getting Chick-fil-A. Here, John. We're getting Chick-fil-A. A guy right out of college. He lives on that stuff. Are you kidding me? So that's good stuff. All right, we got a couple of more. Nice. All right, we get a break in here. John's that's the things he's most stoked about. He's been to College Football Hall of Fame for 3 days. He got a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and he's pumped. He's stoked. All right, we get a break. When we come back, we will be joined by Buck Bellew. Georgia legend is next right here on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. the Tom Abraham Show today here from SEC Media Days and brought to you by Valley Equipment Rental. We want to thank them for making it possible for us to be on location today. It's a hump day here at the SEC Media Days in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame, and we'll be being joined in a few minutes by Buck Bellew, who will be sliding by here to talk to us a little bit about what we can expect out of the Georgia Bulldogs this year, and also his new book, Inside the Hedges. You would think that there's been so many books written about Georgia football, but how many have been written by a guy who played it at a high level and up until last year was the last guy 40 years ago to win a national championship as a quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs. So Buck Bellew will join us here in just a few moments. I wanted to share something that Nick Saban said on Josh Pace's podcast. He was talking about scheduling, and it's interesting because this is something that Wes Neighbors and I debated. I don't want to say argued. So I don't argue with Wes, but we debated this concept of the cupcake game, and just how many of these cupcake games do you want? And when are we going to get to, 9 or maybe even 10 SEC games? And what kind of games are being played into non-conference games? And I thought it was interesting what Nick Saban had to say about that. Take a listen.
All right, if attendance goes down, then how does that impact us in a positive way? So to play quality games is the most important thing. All right, but our rules don't enhance us playing quality games because you got to have a winning record to get in the bowl game. Why don't we do it like basketball? Have some rating system that even if you went 5-7, but you played a really good schedule and you beat some pretty good teams, you could go to a bowl game, rather than trying to create a schedule where you play 4 teams that you know you're going to beat, and if I can just win 2 other games, I'll be bowl eligible. And that's important to my program. And it's important to me keeping my job. All right, so, but how about the fans? Do they want to go see these games? So, it was, I don't know how many years ago, 6, 8 years ago, I said, why don't we play 9 games in the SEC? All right, now they're talking about playing 9 in the future. I'm saying, why don't we play 10?
There you go. That's what he's saying. Why don't they play 10, Grizz? And to be honest with you, how glorious was it during the COVID year to see a 10-game schedule and all 10 games be SEC games? I would love to see a 10-game schedule of SEC games and then one cupcake and as a tune-up and one game against a group of 5 or a Power 5 conference team. It would seem to be that would be better. And look, I think we're definitely going to get to 9, right? But when you add teams like Texas and Oklahoma, you're going to have 16 teams in the league. At least 9 or 10 you want to play within the league. Well, that was Wes's argument. Yeah. Sure helped Jacksonville State when they played Auburn and almost beat them, remember? And that was before they moved to the FBS, so that was something that helped that program. For the Alabama State game against Auburn, yeah. The Jacksonville State game, I mean, it went down to the last, right down to the end. The argument that Wes was making was that if you don't have those paid games, it could really obviously thwart those programs. They need that money. My argument was this: pay them anyway. Pay them anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, why? Maybe the Power 2 conference teams, let's call it what it is, right? Maybe the Power 2 and the middling 3 conference teams, maybe there should be a pool of money that they put together and that money goes to those smaller schools anyway. Because, look, if you want to shore up their program, fine. But I don't want to watch it. I don't need to watch you pound. I don't need to watch a JV game. I don't need to watch you pound the snot out of them and call the dogs off at 35-0 at the half and everything else like that. It doesn't enhance anything. And Wes's take was that the stadiums are so full anyway and the people are paying. Well, at Alabama, let me tell you something. It hasn't been that way. It's starting to kind of pull back a little bit. They aren't necessarily always packed, when you get to those games. So, I'm just saying, Buck Bellew coming up to the set now to join us, and he's here. Buck Bellew and Stetson Bennett, two guys that have won national championships now as quarterbacks for the Georgia Bulldogs, and Buck joins us now, tanned, rested, and ready. We're losing our summer tan, though, having to be inside this building for 4 straight days. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, some would call it a golfer's tan.
It's a golfer's tan. It is a golfer's tan. But
farmer's tan, they called it in South Georgia growing up.
You haven't been playing in the afternoon, though, right? I mean, have you been slipping out and trying to? I mean, it's brutal out there.
Well, we've got this the tour, the charity golf tour set up every year.
Yeah.
We've got probably 6 or 8 different events we're trying to get to. So, yeah, I mean, this time of the year, getting to play a little more golf than normal.
I don't like – we just talked with Gary Stoken, by the way, and I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him yet in the last day or two, but he just got back from the –
Wimbledon.
And St. Andrews.
Ooh.
He was in the grandstand when Tiger came up 18 and Rory was going down 1. He was in the grandstand at the end when Cameron Smith was winning the Open Championship. I don't know if you've ever been. That's bucket list for me. It's on my. I played college golf, so it's bucket list for me is to at some particular point in time get over to St. Andrews. It just looks so cool.
Yeah, I'd love to do that too, but I want to plan it like they had it this year, where there's no wind.
Yes, no wind.
None of that 40-mile-an-hour stuff.
71 degrees and no wind, and it's funny because I always get texts from folks that are not golfers, if you will, or golf historians, and they look at it and they say, it looks like garbage. It looks like my Muni. I mean, why would I want to play on it? Burned out garbage Muni, putting from 40 yards off the green and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't want to do it all the time, but I love Lush, but I would like to do it once. I'd like to go do it.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list, man. I got to do that.
Yeah, it would be good to do. Was writing a book on your bucket list? Have you written other books other than Inside the Hedges?
No, I've got some others in mind, though. I wasn't going to do the one and done thing. Come on now, Tom.
We can do like Inside the Studio next, right?
Well, there is a radio book in there somewhere.
There should be a radio
book. Yeah, we could definitely do
so.
that. There's a baseball book, minor league baseball. There are a ton of good stories there I can pass along doing that. And, we'll see. I'm thinking maybe a tailgate recipe book.
Wow, that's a great idea. Now, were you approached about Inside the Hedges, or is this something you've had in your mind for years? You say, I want to write a book about the history of Georgia football.
Yeah, as a student athlete, I can't say I was really into math and science.
Right.
But I really enjoyed the literature, the writing, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, there was a little bit of me, even way back in college, I was thinking maybe at some point be a sports writer.
Yeah, really?
I've done a little of that.
Same thing.
Yeah, a little column once a week for the Savannah Morning News back in the day. And this is a project that really started when I was at Georgia. I had a daily planner. Dad was a salesman, and he gave me a daily planner that he kept every single day. Take it to Georgia, son. And, there were days I'd come back at the end of the day and jot down some notes, not knowing what I would do with them.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of me, even way back 42 years ago, thinking, might be able to write a book at some point in time.
When I talk about things, Buck Bellew with us here, when I talk about things in sports, in history in sports, I always refer to it the big dog era. I was born in 1960. So to me, it's the big dog era. Like they have the young people, it's the ESPN era. They don't think anything existed before 1980 because there was like, if I didn't see it on ESPN, it didn't happen. So for me, it's the big dog era, 1960. Is this book cover the Buck Bellew era since 1980, or is this a book about the history of Georgia going back? Fran Tarkenton mentioned in the book. I mean, where do we go with this book?
Yeah, it's the quarterback's journey to the 1980 national championship is what it is.
Okay.
And so part of the motivation for me, and I've been asked so many times, Tom, through the years about Valdosta High School, winningest high school football program in the country.
Yeah.
And so people, at least here in the state of Georgia, thousands of people have asked me, hey, what were they doing down there? How'd they win all these football games? So I felt inclined to dive into that. And the early part of the book is, my time in Valdosta, playing for the Valdosta High Wildcats, and what the secret to success was, a little glimpse behind the curtain. And then, there was the build-up to the 1980 season. In 78, I was the backup quarterback, didn't get to play a lot, got to play a little bit. And then in the season-ending game against Georgia Tech, we're down 20-0. And Coach Dooley walks over and he says, Ballou, get in there, let's see what you can do. And I'm thinking, wow, he doesn't think I'm going to do very much.
Yeah.
And then I thought, where's my helmet? I hadn't put that thing on in 3-4 weeks on a Saturday. So I was like, where's the helmet? Got to find the helmet. We come back and win the game. And that was probably the biggest moment for me, was showing the teammates, the coaching staff, and the fan base, hey, this Ballou kid, he can help us win.
Right.
And so that was a big deal for me, and I write about that. Sophomore year was a quarterback competition with Jeff Pyburn. And his dad was on the coaching staff as the linebacker coach.
Wow.
And so I knew this coming in recruiting and, dealt with it the first 2 years on campus. So there was a competition to win the job that I had to go through. And I write about that, some of the challenges. And, look, during the course of leading in to the 80 season and through the 80 season, I'm also putting some life lessons in there, things I learned that I'm hoping to pass along to some of the younger quarterbacks out there.
Is there anything, does it extend beyond the championship season and then the rest of it, or is that the end of the book there? Is there?
Yeah, we beat Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl to win the national championship.
Right.
And it must have been 25 years later. I bump into this gentleman who was telling me how he was working as an undercover officer protecting the President of the United States,
Right.
who was at the game that day, Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And he was when the game ended, I guess President Carter had left, and so his responsibilities were up, and he was leaving the Superdome and saw this gentleman leaning outside the Superdome, leaning up against the stadium, and was shedding some tears.
Yeah.
And he felt inclined to go over and ask this gentleman if he was okay. And so he did. Well, it turns out it's my father.
Oh, my gosh, really?
Who was just emotional. He had grown up in Macon, Georgia. His team was the Georgia Bulldogs, and he had become emotional there that his son was now part of a national championship team at Georgia. And, he passed along the story to me, and Dad had passed away about 10 years ago. So that's the way the book ends.
Yeah, wow, that is so cool. Buck Ballou with us here talking about his book, Inside the Hedges. I got to get that and read it.
InsideTheHedges.com.
InsideTheHedges.com. Now, that's where you find it, InsideTheHedges.com. And this is, look, Georgia fans going to be all over this. Georgia fans going to love this. But to me, this is if you're an SEC fan, if you're a college football history fan, this was a moment in time because, oh, by the way, you had a dude behind you wearing number 34 and it didn't suck. I mean, this was a, Herschel Walker. You know what I mean? My God, it was a Herschel Walker. We had never seen anything. What the great Larry Munson once said, oh, my God, that freshman. I remember that should be Herschel's, whatever his campaign thing is, when he's running for Senate. My God, that freshman. And then, of course, he leaves early to USFL. I mean, so there's so much history around Herschel, the big trade, Dallas, but you're right in the center of that whole thing as you guys win that national championship. So I think anybody that's a historian of college football, that was a seminal moment, and it was Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl that you beat. So it's all of those things seem to come into play. Not just for Georgia
I write
fans.
about the recruiting part too, not only with me, but I even jumped in the car in Athens and drove down to Wrightsville to recruit Herschel, trying to get him to Athens.
Really?
Yeah, we're in the I formation. We need a running back that can carry the load, and didn't want to miss out on not getting him, so I made the trip down twice.
Yeah.
First time I go down, he's playing in a sub-region basketball tournament. And John Robinson from USC's in the stands. Joe Paterno's there from Penn State. Danny Ford from Clemson. I mean, this old gym looked like it was going to fall down.
Yeah.
Down in South Georgia, and all these big timers are in there. I didn't get a chance to speak to him that night, unfortunately, and I just drove on back to Athens. But I went back a couple of weeks later, and it was sort of the same scenario. But he came out back, and we had a quick conversation. And I said, look, I know we don't have a lot of time together. What can I answer?
Yeah.
Well, what are you wondering about? And he said, well, you know, Coach Dooley told me I'd be able to run track. So can I trust him on that? And I said, well, Herschel, he told me I could play baseball, and I'm playing baseball.
Yeah.
So what's the next question?
Yeah.
And he reaches up, and he's got this little scraggly goatee that he grabs. And I said, you're going to have to shave that off. Coach Dooley's not going to go for that. And we laughed and, you know, shook hands and hugged and, you know, went about our business. And fortunately, you know, a few weeks later, he decided he was going to come play for the Bulldogs.
And then, of course, you know, the cocktail party that year was amazing as well. You know, hitting Lindsey Scott on the dead run and run, Lindsey, run. You know, I mean, that was such a deal. In your mind, because now you're writing something from, you know, back then. And I think about stuff from the early 80s and then my coaching career, which ended in 97. And I get stuff wrong now. And I'm like, wow, I thought we played that game on this day, or I thought that was on the road, or whatever. So for you to go back, how much research did you have to do researching yourself, looking at Buck Bellew on the internet and researching yourself to go back and find out exactly what the scores of some of those games were and, you know, some of that kind of stuff?
Well, I was able to. Mom kept a scrapbook, which came in handy.
Yeah.
And also they provided us with the 22 film of each of the games in 1980. So we had a DVD of each of the games in 1980. And I went back and watched every one of those games and took some notes off that, which really helped. And, you know, the one thing, though, that really stood out was, look, the national championship game against Notre Dame. I complete one pass in the game.
No.
One pass.
Don't tell people that.
And I was so.
Why are you telling the people that?
Man,
you had one completion in that game?
I was so embarrassed with that I had.
Jay Barker thinks that's bad from the 92 championship.
I had never seen the replay of the Notre Dame game. But to do the book, I had to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
And so I was a little tentative doing that, you know. But
It's
I
a
tell
hell
you,
of a pass, though, wasn't it?
it was a real blessing to have done that, because what I saw was Notre Dame had the #1 defense in college football that year.
Yeah.
And so they did a great job against us, who was we were pretty vanilla on offense, right? But I went back and saw that I had no reason to be embarrassed, ashamed. There were some things I did that helped the team win that night. I threw a couple of blocks for Herschel that sprung him loose. All right, there were. We played a clean game offensively. We, I don't believe, had any penalties, noteworthy penalties. We got the plays called, got them off on time.
Yeah.
You know, so there were some things I did to help the team win in spite of just completing that one pass.
And the current game is so different, obviously, but there's a lot of similarities to what Stetson Bennett was able to do. And look, let's be honest. You and I talked at the beginning of last season. You were vocal. You said this team to win has to have JT Daniels in there. We were all wrong. We all felt that way. That this kid couldn't necessarily win them all, you know, and it looked a little sketchy after the SEC championship game. We thought does JT Daniels have to play in a national championship game for them to win? And he proved everybody wrong. But isn't that what Stetson Bennett does the best, is manage? He's smart. He gets them in and out of the huddle. He gets them lined up right, and he gets the right play called. I mean, you know, those things there's a lot more to being a quarterback than just completing 70% of your passes. And in this day and age with the dink and dunk offenses and so on and so forth, that, you know, they're going to have numbers, but being a clean quarterback like that is important.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. You got to be able to do that. If you're going to win and win big, you've got to be playing clean, providing some good leadership. You got to make plays when the team needs you to make plays. He did all those things. And I was wrong about Stetson and JT Daniels, and I admitted it on the air. I was wrong on that. I think Stetson, a much better leader of the team than JT Daniels ever was. I think it was that Cali thing
You know,
this would have gotten away from him.
And I don't want to throw shade at a 21-year-old kid. We have to remember these are kids. You know what I mean? They are kids. But I remember last year at SEC Media Days, to be honest with you. JT slunched way back in the chairs, head down. You know, he
really uncomfortable.
Really uncomfortable. Cut off his interviews. Didn't even do the rest of Radio Row. They said he was frazzled a bit. And I said, I just told my audience, you know, because I had 11 years on the sideline. I raised 4 sons. I know what one looks like. And I said, that kid ain't leading no football team in the South to a national championship. I'm telling you, this kid doesn't – there's something – you know what one looks like, and that's not what it looks like here in the SEC. And
you know what I found out later? This is the first time he ever wore a dress shirt with a tie. He had never had a tie on. And I wish I could say that.
It was strangling him.
I wish I could say that. But he was totally uncomfortable in the moment. I had some patching up to do with Stetson during the course of the season, patching up our relationship a little bit because of that take of them needing JT Daniels.
Well, you were
in
never
there.
ugly about him.
Well,
you just
no.
said you just didn't feel like a 5'11" walk-on quarterback is going to lead the Georgia Bulldogs to a national championship. Get in line, because there's a lot of us that felt that way.
Well, I was wrong, and I told him I was wrong, and I told the listening audience I was wrong.
Yeah.
He won me over in the college football playoffs. The Michigan Orange Bowl game really won me over. And I've been on board ever since. I'm a little upset now coming into this season. You've got like Tim Tebow came out with his top 5 SEC quarterbacks. Stetson's not one of them.
Yeah.
Jordan Rodgers came out with his top 5 SEC quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett's not one of them. I saw Pro Football Focus come out with their top quarterbacks in college football. They had him like 42nd in college football, 9th in the SEC, Tom.
Yeah.
So some of these outlets and people still don't get it. Look, he can make all the throws. He is hard to get a hand on as far as sacking and getting on the ground. I mean, there's something to be said for an undersized guy with these mammoth guys that are playing the game right now.
Right.
It's tough for them, but he can scramble, he can lead, he can make all the throws. He's going to have another big-time year this year.
And I don't like to predict 12-0s because there's always a trip up. And, again, we're dealing with kids. And, Sally broke up with me last night, and the kid's mentally he's gone, and everything. Believe me, I coached him, I know. But they're double-digit favorites in every single game. I mean, there is nothing on this deal that suggests to me they have their crossover with Auburn, but Auburn is down right now. So they always have that game. And, their other crossover is Mississippi State.
That might be a tough one now, going in there with all those cowbells.
Could be a little cowbell there. Yeah. Could be. I'm looking for where the trip up is. I do think you have to play well to beat South Carolina on the road in Columbia. I don't think they are going to suck, but they're going to be a double-digit favorite there. If anybody is near them, it's a major upset. I go up to Kentucky, and they've got a veteran quarterback. And so you look for potential upsets. But they are going to be double-digit favorites all the way until they come back here in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. And to that note, let me just ask you this. When that night was over in December, that SEC championship game, how comfortable were you that they would win the rematch if it came to that? Did you think, like, wow, it'll be just a continuation? Or did you think that was a whole freaky thing, and if they get another 4 quarters against Alabama, they can win that game?
Well, I just felt like that, they only rushed 4 guys like 95% of the time in that SEC title game. And Bryce Young stood back there, had all day throwing the football. They threw it about 50 times, and we never touched him. And so I thought that, there's something crazy about that game plan for Georgia. Rush 4 guys. Now, you got 5 offensive linemen.
They're pretty good 4 guys, but yeah.
Yeah, they never got pressure on him. I tell you what, in the national championship game, they turned up the heat. Rushing 5 and 6, getting pressure on Bryce Young, and it changed the whole dynamics of the game.
Everybody who has a pick for the most part in their preseason polls and everything else has Alabama just a little notch above Georgia. Are they making a mistake? To have Bama 1 or 2 and Georgia 3 or 4, 5. I saw one would have met 5, which is nuts. But do you think people are making a mistake if you're rating those 2 teams right now?
No, we'll see them here in Atlanta. Rematch, another showdown. And you mentioned the Georgia schedule. I think this is the way it's got to play out for Georgia. Is the offense, Kirby's got to turn this offense loose. You got Stetson Bennett, 6-year senior, knows the offense like the back of his hand. He's got 8 to 12 weapons he can spread the ball around to, a really solid offensive line, and I think a couple of dynamic running backs you're going to see develop this year too. So offensively, they need to lead the way until this defense can get some experience and some reps and some chemistry, trying to replace all these guys that have moved on to the NFL. And that's the way I see it. If Georgia can lead with the offense, they can score 40-plus a game. They almost did it a year ago. Let this offense lead the way until this defense can settle in. They've got talent, but it's young and inexperienced. Maybe by the time the 1st of December rolls around, they've got a team that can compete with Alabama.
Well, they can compete with Alabama, but the defense, what Kirby is doing defensively reminds me a lot now of the the long stretch that Nick Saban has had, where defensively they lose guys every year, but they're reloading. There's no way that it might not be what they were. They were so dominant up front last year, but they're going to be fine. I mean,
and their coaching
fine.
staff over there, Tom, my goodness.
Staff.
I mean, you got Kirby Smart. He's got his hand on the defense. Glenn Schumann has been the right hand of Dan Lanning over the last 3-4 years, so he takes over as co-defensive coordinator. And you got Will Muschamp on the staff, too, now as the co-defensive coordinator. Tell me another defensive staff in the country that can match up to what Kirby has on that defensive side of the ball. They got young talent, got a coaching staff that can coach them up. I think at the end of the year, you're going to see this defense playing some good football.
Inside the Hedges is the name of the book. Go to InsideTheHedges.com. Is it at your favorite bookstores too, or is it just they got to get it at InsideTheHedges.com?
We're doing a lot of the book signings right now. I'm traveling the whole state of Georgia. We've been to my hometown, Valdosta, Jacksonville, St. Simons, Savannah. We're heading down to Albany.
All them dog people on St. Simon's Island.
Working Metro Atlanta, and I found that we've had more success going out doing the book signings than we are relying on somebody buying it off the internet.
Do you cover in the book? Did you ever consider giving up football for baseball because you were an outstanding baseball player? Did you ever think, I have a better shot at being an MLB player than being an NFL player?
Well, that was the dream all along, and I write about it. Playing baseball. Coming out of high school, man, I signed with Georgia, and next thing you know, the Major League Baseball draft comes. I'm a second-round draft pick.
You were a second-rounder.
And the Chicago White Sox are saying, hey, come to Appleton, Wisconsin for Class A ball. And I was saying, hold on, Athens or Appleton? I think I still want to go to Athens here. And then coming out of Georgia, got drafted by the Montreal Expos. My boys say, who? And I said, the Washington Nationals. And they go, oh, okay, we know it. We know about that one. But that was the dream. And we talk about the 2 sport challenges in the book. You don't see a lot of this going on anymore.
Yeah.
So, those were quite the days. I was just too stubborn to relent on the doubters and the criticism saying you can't do it at the major college level.
All that Braves coverage as well? Are you still doing all of that stuff as well for the network?
You know, I left with, they provided me with a championship ring.
So that's it.
Coming off the World Series.
Done. You walked away stage left. Huh? The mic drop?
I was stunned, man. I didn't expect to get a ring.
Yeah. That's
the broadcast team.
That's cool. I was a part of a couple of championship teams that gave rings.
Oh, really?
Broadcast,
I did not
arena
expect
football.
it.
That's cool stuff. That's just a fun team to watch this year. Of course, we're a Braves affiliate, but this is a really fun team to see what they did in the last 2 months. It was just incredible. They didn't wait till August and all the new guys to come in.
You think the Mets are a little concerned right now?
A little bit. Looking over the shoulder just a little bit.
I think so.
A little bit. All right, Buck Bellew has been our guest. Buck, I appreciate you so much. It's always great to visit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe one day down the road we work together.
Well, that would be fun. That would be great. I would love to have that opportunity.
Was that supposed to happen at some other point?
It almost happened in 2005. Good job by you to work that in. It did almost happen at one point in time, and it would have been a dream for me. All right, just like your dream to play MLB. Mine would be to be Buck and Abraham. that would have been good times.
Hey, I'm respecting what you're doing from afar. Keep up the great work.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Back at you.
Buck Bellew. How great is that? It's just great, man. I enjoyed his career so much. We're about the same age. I was class of 82. I think he was class of 81, 82, 83, something like that. So we're about the same age. So it's really neat to be able to visit with him. All right, let's get a break in here, and we will come back. Sam Pittman, you did not hear this yet from the electronic room. Sam Pittman next, right here on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Today brought to you by Valley Equipment Rental and their 2 locations. Glad that you are with us here today. And this morning has been all about Arkansas and Georgia. Earlier, Sam Pittman, you heard him live from the podium in the main room. But earlier, Sam Pittman also went to the electronic media room, and I want you to take a listen to what he had to say there. This was Sam Pittman in the electronic media room.
Okay, we remember Coach Pittman from last year. He was very good, and he's back. He has a message for you.
Hi, everybody. I just want to thank you for covering us and what you do for college football. You've all been so good to me. There'll be a time when you won't. I'm sure there will be something there, but I appreciate you after 2 seasons.
Okay, first question, second row on your left.
Hey, Coach. Johnny Condon, ABC 3340 in Birmingham, Alabama. My first question to you, can you just talk me through that game in November in Bryant-Denny last year, the fact that your team not only competed with but almost beat Alabama? And can you speak to just the confidence that gave your group moving forward into this season?
You know, there's a big deal in believing you can do something before you can do it. I think that's with life, anything. I think Alabama beat us 100-0 my first year, and last year we got a little bit closer. I remember my second year, my first year at Arkansas on the previous staff, they beat us about like they did the first year. The second year they beat us 14-13 at our place, and it gave us a level of confidence, if there is such a thing, in a loss. And we don't play to lose. We're the University of Arkansas. We're not trying to lose anybody. But Alabama that night, it did give us a little bit of confidence that we can compete. And we'd already proven that because we'd beaten, I don't know, number 15, number 7, number 17, whatever it was, each week. I think we'd won 3 top 15 or top 20 games already that year, but to compete against University of Alabama is where we need to go to, and we got a little closer.
Front row to your left.
Hey, Coach. Jacques Doucet, WAFB TV in Baton Rouge. I wanted to ask you about a couple people at LSU. Brad Davis, who you coached.
Yeah, I love him.
And Brian Kelly, the new head coach,
Yeah.
he said one of the biggest reasons why he kept Davis on the staff is because he had been mentored by you, and he called you the best offensive line coach in the country. So just want to
Yeah.
get your thoughts on those 2 guys.
Well, Brad Davis, I recruited him out of high school to Oklahoma, and he was my grad assistant at North Carolina, and obviously he was the offensive line coach at Arkansas, and elected to go back home. But he's a wonderful man, a wonderful family, wonderful football coach. So I had talked to Coach Kelly about Brad, and he had obviously said had kept him, and that's quite a compliment from Coach Kelly. Coach Kelly's a great coach. I really have enjoyed getting to know him. I would consider him a friend of mine, and but for him to say that meant a lot to me, and I appreciated it.
Coach, right side, third row.
Tyler Shaw with KBTX in College Station. Your team took such a big leap forward last year. Do you feel like, moving forward, it's going to be any more difficult to keep that sustained success, knowing that you're not going to sneak up on anyone?
Yeah, I think, I think it's going to be, any team, most any team in our league, it's hard to stay consistent with 9 wins, I'm not for sure we snuck up on anybody. We went to Georgia and they beat us 37-0. They kind of were ready for us. I think you just go compete, and I think in this league, I think everybody knows that you better play well no matter who, and it doesn't matter. I remember when we were at Georgia, we were playing some of the other teams that may not be quite as good as we were at the time, and you're going in half and you're either behind or it's a close game. Yes, to answer your question, it's hard, and it's hard to go from 6 wins to 9. It's certainly harder to go from 9. each win you go up is harder, and it's harder to maintain. And BYU, who's 21-4 over the last 2 years and been waiting to the top 20, you got yourself a schedule. So, listen, I love it at Arkansas. I'm not complaining one bit about it. We're the University of Arkansas. We'll go compete. But it's tough.
To your right, fourth row.
Hey, Sam, Dean Legge from Dog Post. Good to see you again. I wanted to ask you, were you surprised with the success Kirby had last season? And if you weren't, why do you think he'll have success winning in the future?
Oh, no. No surprise to me. I mean, he got a great staff, worked his tail off. He's at University of Georgia, which is, has a plentiful state of athletes. But you can have a plentiful state of athletes and not get them too, and he does. Obviously, he has great recruiters on his staff, tireless worker. You could feel that coming. 17, we got beat for the national championship. They're hard to get, obviously, but you could feel that one. You could feel that one coming. And will he continue to have great success? Absolutely. I mean, knowing Kirby, that just made him a little hungrier.
Coach, to your left, fourth row.
If that's possible. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Dan Peck, ESPN 106.7. Coach, the win over Texas last year, I think it stunned some people in college football. Not just that your team won, but how you controlled that football game and the way that you beat Texas. What do you remember of that game and the significance of that win going forward?
I remember how well our defense played. They were flying around. They had a great tailback, and there just wasn't anywhere to go. And I remember we started dominating up front on the offensive line. Everything seemed to be going right. I remember telling the coaches at halftime, if we can just hold on to the ball, they can't score. And we go out, we throw a pick. Now, it was a great pick by the DB at Texas, and they went in and scored against us. The great thing about that is we went down the field and answered maybe 2 or 3 times in a row after that. Rushed for over 300 yards. That's our ball. Now, there's games when we don't rush for that, but that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's how we win games, physicality of the offensive line, running backs, and certainly our quarterback. So at the end of the game, I remember the police officers telling me we can't go shake hands because the crowd's going to go crazy out here. It's going to be unsafe. I said, well, I'm damn sure going to go shake the man's hand. And we did. And I'm here, so it must have been okay.
To your right, Coach, second row.
Coach, my name is Lance Curley. I work with the Lake Oconee News. Again, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
When you were at Georgia a couple of years ago, during the recruitment of Cedric Van Pran, what kind of person was he behind the scenes? And 2 years ago, before you left, could you see him representing his university like he is today?
Yeah, oh, man. Well, ironically, Ced came in with his father for an individual type workout. It was on a camp day. And we worked him out there, me and I don't know who, I can't remember the GA at that time. It was either Cody Kennedy. I think it was Cody. And so Cody and I went out there and worked him out, and his dad was out there. And I went, well, this is a no-brainer. He wasn't highly recruited at the time. And this is a no-brainer. And then I was talking to Coach Smart just previously before we started these interviews, and I said, man, Ced's done such a great job, but I don't know that I had the foresight to see him at center. And, man, has he done a great job there. So, obviously, Coach Luke and Kirby and them, they found the spot for him. I mean, I think he's one of the better centers in the country, and he's certainly one of the better kids in the country.
To your left, Coach, back row.
Coach Ike Jones with the War Report. You lost a significant contributor in Traylon Burks from your offense. Who should are fans going to look back this season and say that was the guy for us that stepped up in his place?
Well, we go to the Outback Bowl. Now that was about a 3-week of preparation, okay? But we didn't have anybody at that point. I think we threw the ball for 103 or 5 yards, something like that during that game. So that put up more of a red flag. Now, in the second half, I think KJ rushed for 100 and some yards himself. I mean, we decided we could run the football, and we did. So, but it was scary early because we weren't getting open, and or we weren't seeing it, whatever the case may be. So I think to answer your question, it's going to be a little bit by committee. We obviously went and got Jaden Hazelwood out of Oklahoma, or he transferred over, however you say it. And Matt Landers is another portal guy. And then Keytron Jackson's a guy that's got to step up. Warren Thompson has to, We've got some young guys, Jaden Wilson, Bryce Stevens. Those are probably our top 6 guys, if I'm not forgetting somebody. But I think we got to kind of do it more by committee than. And I'm not saying one of those guys can't have a breakout season. I'm not saying that, but I think to replace a Burks, you got to do it with more than one guy.
To your right, Coach, back row.
Hey, Coach. Jamal Kennedy, WSFA 12 Sports in Montgomery, Alabama. 2 years ago, you guys traveled down to Auburn and lost that heartbreaking game there on the Plains. You returned to Auburn this year. What do you remember about that game, and what do you think about Jordan-Hare as a venue to play in? Well, it's incredible. I mean, when I was at Georgia, we were number 1 and went in there in a night game, and they beat us bad. And unfortunately, we were able to win the championship game 3 or 4 weeks later, but they were on a roll. They beat us, and then they went, I think that they beat Alabama a couple weeks later, whatever. But the crowd, it's definitely a home field advantage now. What I remember about the game, besides the obvious, was how we were competing. At that point, it was my third game as a head coach, and we'd hung well with Georgia for a half, and then ironically, that's when Stetson Bennett came in, and they beat us pretty good. And then next week we had went to Mississippi State and won. Then we're going to Auburn, and our team, the competitiveness of our team, I think we were down at half, and we kind of came on and made it very close there. I remember we went for a 2-point conversion early in the game, and we didn't make it, and that kind of put us in a catch-up situation. But we're looking forward to going back there. Coach Harson's a great coach, and I'm sure we haven't beat them, since I've been, we're 0-2, and certainly that's one of the games on our schedule that, it's after a bye week, and hopefully we'll be better prepared. Hopefully I'll do a better job than I have the first 2 years.
We only have time for one final question. The gentleman in the back row. Okay. All right.
Jacob Goins, ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. Looking at your schedule in the SEC West every single year, there's tough games every single week. How do you keep your team fresh and ready every single week with such tough games in the SEC West?
Well, I think it's about how you practice. I mean, we're a very physical practice team, but you can take care of your team. You can't really control what happens on Saturday. So you have to have them ready when they run out there on a Saturday. So we adjust practices as basically it's my feel on the team. And injuries has something to do with that. Heat has a lot to do with that. What time of the game you played. Were you on the road? You got in at 3 or 4 in the morning, whatever it may be. There's a lot of things that go into play with that, but you have to be very conscious that you have a football team of kids, and the bottom line is you want to win every single day, and you sure as hell want to win Saturday. And so you just have to figure it out as best you can. I'm still work in progress on that.
And that
Coach
was
Pittman.
Sam Pittman doing a tremendous job. As always, this guy's becoming quickly one of my favorite coaches in the league. We'll get a break in here. We'll come back and wrap it up next. This is 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. As Chuck Oliver is coming up, and Paul Feinbaum, all here from SEC Media Days, and then, of course, the Drive, and they'll have plenty as well. Florida and Kentucky are featured this afternoon here, so I'm sure we'll get some of that sound as well for you later on. And Mark Stoops was walking around doing some interviews and looking good, and I don't know if they'll have him on the Drive or not today, but he is out there as well. Tomorrow, we are looking forward to a really good show as well, and we will be joined by Greg Sankey. The commissioner will be joining us tomorrow. He always helps us wrap it up. It always seems like we get him on the final day, and also Paul Feinbaum tomorrow. So that'll be really good. Paul and I always have a nice, fun conversation as well, so that's coming up all tomorrow. Valley Equipment did a tremendous job helping us be here today, and I really appreciate everything that they have done for us as well. Now, I always give you the picks, and I know it's in Unleashed today, but I always give you the picks because we pick every single game in the SEC. You can't, Grizz, you can't just say 8-4, 8-4, 8-4. You can't have the same people winning the same games. You kind of got to go through the sheet and say, wait a minute, did I have Auburn winning or losing that game? Did I have Texas A&M winning or losing that game? I don't see anybody that pushes Georgia, so I got them at 12-0. I may be a little bit rich on Florida. I have them at 8-4. I have Arkansas at 8-4. I could see possibly 9-3, but I have Arkansas at 8-4. I have Kentucky at 8-4 as well. I think Kentucky loses at Florida. I think Kentucky loses at Ole Miss. I think they lose at Tennessee. and I think they lose against Georgia, so that's the 8-4. You'll have to find out. I may have Tennessee a little better than I feel comfortable with, but we'll have to find out that tomorrow. All right, Coach Grizz did a great job, has been doing a tremendous job back at the studio, mixing everything. The Bandy Man's helping him out there. Smokey Mike Honcho with the Late Show. I am Thom Abraham, and this is 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.